Hello everyone, this is Words About Books, which is a poorly spoken podcast. I'm Ben, he's Nate, and today we're continuing our discussion of Stephanie Meyer's latest addition to the Twilight Saga, Midnight Sun. This was all initially done as one recording session, and we have had to split it into 3 parts for time constraint reasons. We will be picking up more or less exactly where we left off from last week, so if you haven't yet checked out part 1, please go back and do that before you listen to this one. For those of you that are still here, thank you very much, and enjoy the show.
So these Cullens, all right.
Cullens.
They're adopted, right?
That's the
Kids
cover
at
story.
school think that Edward, Rosalie, Emmett, Jasper, and Alice are all adoptive children, but like 2 of those pairs are lovers. I want a Twilight book from the perspective of an average Joe at this school, and what they think about, like, is that incest going on? Like two step siblings, like, well, we're not related by blood, so like, you want to hook up? Like, that's a little weird. Thoughts, Ben?
You know, for whatever reason, I never thought about this. The first time I read it, like, I just accepted that they were like a coven of vampires,
Brother lover and sister lovers.
And well, no, I accepted that they were a coven of vampires, and that their cover story was that they were like pretending to go to high school. I didn't think about the fact that they were all pretending to be siblings as well.
Yes.
So yeah, our cast of vampires is Rosalie and Emmett, who are a romantic couple, Alice and Jasper, who are a romantic couple, Carlisle and Esme, who are an older couple pretending to be the parents, and Edward.
Edward all on his own until he meets Beaufort.
Oh, you're slash fic. The thing that makes the Cullens special among vampire covens, which I guess you didn't know that they were different when you went into this, or did you know the bit about them not consuming human blood?
I wasn't at all surprised.
Okay.
Yeah, that was something like, yeah, that makes sense. Not once was I like, wait, hold on. He can manipulate like emotions? What?
Okay, so the thing that binds the Cullens together is, unlike most vampires, they have committed to only consuming animal blood. And that is something that is described as requiring a great deal of control. Apparently it doesn't satiate nearly as well. And if you drink human blood, you will have red eyes. And if you drink animal blood, you will have yellow eyes.
Ooh.
For some reason.
What if you drink plant juice?
You'll be insane and eventually kill a person. Just like real life.
Yes.
The person who pioneered this lifestyle is Carlisle, who is the father figure vampire, who is also a prophet of sorts.
Or secret bad guy, yeah.
He's like overtly religious. He's a Christian, which I don't think was in the first book. I don't remember that.
What, you don't remember his old cross from his father like 400 years ago?
Maybe that was in the first book. I don't remember that. I remember thinking Carlisle had like some belief that vampires were redeemable, but I didn't remember him being like
through the power of the Lord.
Yeah. I don't remember him being an overt, like explicitly stated Christian. But I don't know, maybe he's not. Maybe he's just spiritual, and that's like his spiritual foundations. Like I said, she doesn't really talk about it too much, but he has a cross. He visits churches. And at the end of the book, Edward prays in a church, which definitely wasn't in the first one. So that was kind of weird.
That is kind of weird, yes.
And yeah, I guess it's his idea that they all pretend to be siblings.
Hey, it's what the good Lord wanted. You don't question God, Ben.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, now that you mention it, so Alice and Jasper are together, but they don't do a lot of PDA. So I don't know if maybe
They got together because Alice had a vision that she would meet him 28 years from now and fall in love, and she just went with it.
Look, I love Alice. Alice is my favorite character.
That's true. She's not bad. I'll give you that.
I would not mind a book about Alice, but
yeah, I wouldn't mind a book about Alice or Edward in his vigilante days. There's a lot more. They bring up a lot of much more interesting stories in this book.
There is no way that new Batman movie is not going to be branded as Edward in his vigilante days.
Hey, go for it.
But
I'd watch it.
I think the impression I got in the first book is that they don't appear to be couples to the people around them.
Uh-huh.
But
like Rosalie and Emmett.
I want to say, I think I remember in the movie they explicitly said that Rosalie was with Emmett. I don't know what the deal is with that.
They're just step siblings who realize, like,
text me at WAB Pod or tweet me at WAB Pod if you know what the deal with that is. I don't know. I can't. I didn't think about it. I guess she's just like a stage magician. She just misdirects the incest. As stage magicians do.
Oh, I think I might have blown the speakers with that one. Jesus Christ.
Oh, Nate. I've been waiting weeks for this moment. Could you please pronounce the name of the Native American tribe?
All right, let me find it in the script because I can't. It starts with a Q. Where the fuck?
It does start with a Q.
All right, let me just find. God. Quileute.
That's really close.
What is it?
Quileute.
Quileute. Oh, yeah.
Yes. That's really, you know what? You did good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give that a pass. Did they have any business being in this book at all?
No. Not even a little bit.
Yeah.
Fan service.
Yeah, it was pure fan service. In the first book, from Bella's perspective, they're that's how Bella finds out that Edward's a vampire, is Jacob tells her the legend.
But then, so I was confused the whole time because he's like, I don't believe in vampires. And I was like, but you're a werewolf. But apparently that's not the case. Is that right?
That's correct. So yeah, that does... I didn't even think about that till you said something. But yes. Okay, so in the original Twilight, Jacob thinks that the vampire thing is all their elders' superstitious legends. And that, it's just not true. It's old-fashioned. And so he tells Bella this myth they have about the Cullens. And it comes off as like very like horror movie, the like old man warning figure.
Okay.
It's like, don't go into those woods. People die in the woods. Or there's legends that people die in the woods. That's the, Stephanie Meyer's got some horror chops. I'm going to say, because like that pregnancy scene, man. She knows. I would love to see Stephanie Meyer write a horror. Anyway.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I'd love to see Stephanie Meyers give birth.
What?
Go on.
What the fuck is wrong with you? Yeah. So in the first one, it makes a lot more sense that it's just kind of this native, like legend that's been in the town for a while. Then in the second book, you find out they're werewolves, or they're shapeshifters. They're not really werewolves because there are werewolves.
Okay. And these are not werewolves.
These are not werewolves. These are
Okay.
shapeshifters.
Why do they only shapeshift into wolves then?
Because, okay, so this is where things get a little sticky. I thought when I read this book that she invented a fictional Native American tribe that turned into the werewolves.
Okay.
That's not the case. There really are Quileute people. They're an independent, like, sovereign nation, as most native reservations are. They had about 700 people. I think they now have about 2,000 people living on the reservation itself. Something, I don't know their native legends, but there is something in their legends that deals with a wolf. Like maybe the first member or the first natives were wolves that became people, something like that. I don't want to get too far into it because I really don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah, it sounds like you have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
The problem is, neither does Stephanie Meyer. So she took, as far as I could tell, I think she used to live in this area, and so she had some passing familiarity with the legends. She did a bunch of research into it, and she took this founding myth that had something to do with wolves and was like, shapeshifters. Shape-shifting wolf people. And that's been somewhat contentious. I've heard two takes on the use of the Quileute native lore in Twilight. One is that they don't like it, and they found it kind of offensive. But the second is that this is a relatively small tribe, and their popularity as a result of the Twilight franchise aided them in a land dispute with the U.S. government. So
they
kind of like
Twilight. George W. Bush, get on that.
But yeah, so the way this works is the Quileute people can shapeshift, and I think it's like, again, the obsession with like youth or something. Like people between a certain age can develop the ability to shapeshift in the presence of some kind of danger to their tribe.
That checks out.
Specifically vampires, I guess.
So if the U.S. government came in and said, this is our land now, would they learn to shapeshift then?
If they were vampires.
Okay.
So I don't really know how it works. I don't know why it's specifically vampires.
So the plot can happen.
I
don't know why it's specifically werewolves if they're shapeshifters.
Because of the founding like wolf myth.
Okay.
I don't know. She wanted to have werewolves.
So why are they not werewolves?
I don't know. So I thought they were werewolves until Breaking Dawn, when at some point in Breaking Dawn, one of the Volturi comes and he sees the wolves and he freaks out and he's like, "Are you people fucking insane? You teamed up with Children of the Moon?" And Edward says, "Oh, come on, they're obviously not Children of the Moon. It's broad daylight. There's no moon. They're not werewolves. They're shapeshifters."
Boo.
And where the concept of true werewolves, at least as far as I know, was both introduced and never mentioned again after that one line.
Okay.
So I have no clue.
The true Children of the Moon rarely move in packs, and they are never much in control of themselves, says Edward when talking about werewolves.
Because there haven't been vampires around the natives in a long time, there haven't been many shapeshifters in a long time. And once the vampires come back, the shapeshifters come back.
But in this book, they do nothing. I thought that they were already werewolves because one of them talks about the cold bodies. And I'm like, oh, he has a way of sensing that he has no warmth coming from his body.
No, they just know that the Cullens are cold ones, according to their lore.
Cool.
It was actually, I think, it's Jacob Black is his name, and Billy Black is his father, and Ephraim Black was Jacob's grandfather.
I think he was like a great grandfather.
I don't know. Ephraim Black, I think, was the last shapeshifter. And Jacob is in the process of becoming a shapeshifter, and that's why he finds the smell of vampires so offensive. But he doesn't know that yet. So that was a little It was a little wink and a nod to the fans. Like if you're in the know, you know why Jacob smells that.
Okay, all right, cool.
Do you have any lore-based accusations? Because I'm about done talking about the lore. Any lore you want to throw at me?
Well, we already talked about how they don't change, but that doesn't make any sense because you do grow and change with knowledge that you incorporate into your brain.
But imagine if you were 17 and you just knew a bunch of stuff.
All right, I'm imagining if I'm 17 and I just got 2 honorary medical degrees. I am no longer your average 17-year-old, and thus I have grown and changed from being that 17-year-old.
But is this not the plot of Doogie Howser, sir?
I don't see what that has to do.
Because Doogie Howser was a doctor, but he was still 17. And he still acted 17, even though he was a doctor. Come at me.
I'm calling bullshit on that.
Doogie Howser.
Calling bullshit quit on that.
The Doogie Howser defense, tweet at WAB Pod if I won this trial. I really think, okay, obviously she was just trying to make it okay for them to have a romance.
Yeah, that was my next point. It's not okay.
Was it okay? You didn't watch Buffy, did you?
No.
Yeah, Buffy and Angel have... I bring up Buffy because...
A lot, yes. All the time.
It's a fucking amazing show. But Buffy and Angel were together and nobody said a word. And part of me wants to say, like, yeah, is it weird for a 108-year-old vampire to get
yes,
with...
absolutely.
Get with a young girl? The vampires don't exist. I don't know. I want to say...
Well, the alternative, Ben, is Bella's turned at age 18, Edward's 17.
Okay. So it all magically becomes appropriate if she's 18.
No, it becomes inappropriate because he's a minor and she's not.
Oh, okay. Well, oh God, I'm not going to get into that. But what I was going to say is this is somebody's romantic fantasy. I'm willing to give it a pass. I think we give a lot of things a pass in fiction that are not appropriate in reality. Like, off the top of my head, James Bond is...
That was not off the top of your head. Don't pretend that shit.
It was, actually, because I was trying to think of a different thing. But no, James Bond is super rapey. He's a serial rapist.
Well, let me tell you something. I, in fact, do not give that a pass. It was very uncomfortable, especially in some of the earlier movies with Connery, where he's just casually beating women and forcing sex upon them. That's fucked up. Yeah,
Sean Connery has some really bad ones.
Yeah, he does.
Oh, okay. Maybe, let me think. I mentioned that the Twilight relationship checks all these abuse criteria.
Yep. Guilty.
No, I'm going to invoke fiction card and say that you should 100% consume media with your brain turned on.
Okay, Ben, let's talk about the primary audience of Twilight.
Okay.
So it's young, it skews younger, and as we just apparently decided with Doogie Howser, if you're below a certain age, you're a big dumb bag of bricks.
I didn't say that. I said
an immature douche.
You're emotionally immature. No matter how smart you are, no matter how well read you are, that doesn't impact your emotional maturity necessarily.
And even after 107 years, that can't change.
Not if those are the rules of Stephanie Meyer's world.
Okay.
She makes the rules.
All right.
It's
that's fair. So, I guess I just need to say it. How many of these 14-year-old girls or whatever are reading this book with the brain turned on?
I don't know.
Guilty.
No. Well, okay. Let me ask you this. You mentioned in one of your notes... I'm going to reference your notes.
Oh, geez. Which one? I'm gonna put these up, by the way. I think I'll clean them up and put them up since I highlighted 5% of the book.
You can put mine up, too. People can compare and contrast. But you talked about Edward thinking about backhanding Mike Newton through a wall as being an inappropriate response. But it was a very 17-year-old response. And so my question to you, sir, is...
Why hasn't he grown out of that after 100+ years of being alive?
Do you think media where people do like backhand people through walls, Do you think violent video games, things like that, do you think 17-year-olds shouldn't consume those? Like, because they might think killing people is right?
So that's a little different, though, than what we're getting at, which is emulating relationships that you see.
I don't know that it is. I think it's the same sort of argument that you're making, that a 14-year-old girl can't separate fantasy from reality. If the fantasy is problematic, then it shouldn't be consumed because she'll be too dumb to understand that it's problematic. Whereas a boy can shoot as many people on his Xbox and call them racial slurs as he wants. And he'll be able to figure out that you shouldn't actually do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad we're on the same page.
I think that's where I'm coming from, is like, is it problematic? Yeah. Should you have a talk with your kids about appropriate relationships? Yeah. But should you also have a talk with your kid about...
Ben, I don't want to actually have to raise my child, okay? I want media to do it for me.
But what I was going to say is...
I hope my wife doesn't
there are so many people out there who, like, I don't know the answer to this question. You know, maybe it is too much for teen girls to realize, but this is a bad relationship to emulate. I'm not going to say you should emulate it. But like virtually all relationships in media are bad relationships to emulate, because good relationships aren't fun to watch. They're fun to be in. But it's like I said, if you and your wife come to an amicable, fair resolution about who pays the car payment this month, no one gives a shit. Where's the drama, man? And part of me wants to say is, like, teen girls like Twilight, therefore it's dumb. There's a lot of that.
Guilty.
No, there's just a lot of, like, if a teen girl likes it, it must be bad.
Agreed. I'm glad we're on the same page here.
So I say not guilty. Oh my God, what was that? Ben, it's me, you, from the future. What? Have you ever had one of those moments where you're having an argument with a loser, and then you remember later, like, what you should have said? Yeah, I kind of feel like I'm having one of those right now. Like, I know there's a better point to make here, I just can't think of it. Well, you see, you should also maybe point out that Romeo and Juliet, the classic love story, is also ending in a murder-suicide. And, well, no, a double suicide. Sorry, I got a little carried away there. That's just fine. Happens to the best of us, man. And also, in the Shakespeare vein, Taming of the Shrew is problematic, to say the least. That's a good point. I hope Nate's listening to this right now, and I'm going to mention that to him. But yeah, we're on a tight clock here, man. I think I can't be having too many more of these sidebar conversations. But I'm glad you showed up to remind everybody about those points that I definitely would have forgot to make. No problem, Ben. And don't forget, Ultra Corona. Well, yeah. So that was weird. So anyway, Nate, what were you saying?
I like how you turned me into Jack Thompson.
Yep. Yeah, that's a reference people are going to remember.
Joe Lieberman?
Lieberman. He's more well known than Jack Thompson. Is Jack Thompson still alive?
I think he's still alive, but I think he was, like, disbarred or something.
I know he got disbarred in Florida.
He stopped his crusade.
For our younger viewers, Jack Thompson was a guy who rallied against violent video games. And Jack Thompson, I mean, I guess your counter argument to me, if you think I'm wrong, is that yes, Twilight's wrong, and also yes, those video games are wrong. And we should all read the Bible.
Yeah.
Well, there's no problematic sex in the Bible, that's for sure. You're definitely never going to see an old man. You're definitely never going to see an old man get with a young girl in the Bible.
All right. So we talked about that age gap, and you put here, this is your words, Edward can't decide if he's Peter Pan or an old man trapped in a young man's body.
Damn it.
Got him. Guilty.
Yeah.
it does oscillate between those two.
Yeah.
Just like it oscillates between him hating humans and like wanting to be a human.
Yeah, I'm trying to scroll through my notes here.
Trying to find a note that exonerates you.
Here's a fun note. I'm just going to read this quote. They're talking about where to go on their dream trip. Eric enthusiastically named Comic-Con, and the table erupted in laughter. What a dork, Lauren hissed. Jessica snickered. I know, right? Tyler rolled his eyes. You're never going to get a girlfriend. Mike told Eric.
You sure got them. It's definitely not going to be some of the best-selling movies of all time in like 3 years' time.
Yeah, no, because my comment then was, oh God, I'm old. She's old. This is old. Certainly not going to have Twilight at Comic-Con every fucking year.
Can you also talk about Edward the Control Freak, as it's called here? How he won't let Bella drive anymore, ever again. See, she drives too slowly because, like, she always worries about the wrong things. It's like an actual quote. And it's like, a car wreck is pretty deadly, right?
That's not why he doesn't let her drive.
Why doesn't he, Ben? Can we get it on air?
All right. So yeah, I did have in my notes that Edward keeps talking about how he's so old and he's too cool for school and he's sick of it and it's so boring and doing the same thing over and over. And then on the other hand, he'll talk about how, Bella's obviously going to leave him because once she's 25 or something, she's not going to be entertained by a 17-year-old anymore because he knows he's stuck at that level of immaturity. But he's constantly telling her what to do and telling her what's best for her and telling her she can't take care of herself because he knows what's best for her because he's older than everything. It's like, nah, it's not good. He's not helping me. He could help me more on this. Edward the Control Freak is a problem.
Guilty. All right.
Everybody knows. Oh God, let me find this quote. Edward constantly, and this is in the first book too. Edward constantly sneaks into her room and watches her sleep without her knowledge or consent. And this is an example of a problem with the original Twilight that was sort of like hammered into the ground. Like everybody knows this is wrong. And Stephanie Meyer got a ton of shit for this. Everybody made fun of it. And so all throughout the book, Stephanie has Edward realizing it's wrong and spending
and then does it anyway.
Long paragraphs justifying why it's okay or why
because she's bad luck and everything is out to kill her. Like, what if a meteor, this is actually one of his justifications, what if a meteor falls out of the sky and it's going to land directly on her? Shouldn't she have someone who's conveniently right there to deflect that meteor?
Edward has to go 5 hours without seeing Bella, and this is his reaction. It shouldn't have been so hard for me to do the right thing, but all afternoon I was gritting my teeth against the urge that had me yearning to ditch too, in order to go find the girl again, like a stalker, an obsessed stalker, an obsessed vampire stalker. That's the exact quote from the book.
Yep. Hit the nail on the head. Guilty.
He is guilty of that. That's not good. The problem is Edward constantly ruminates on how he shouldn't be doing this, but...
And then he does it anyway.
He does it anyway, but it's okay. It's okay because he's not a peeping Tom. He's not there to...
Yeah, he's not like Mike, a guy who pictures fucking Bella in gym class while engaging in sports.
Yeah, he's not Mike Newton. Like, if Mike Newton were doing this, that would be a problem. I think we can all agree on that.
I don't know anything about Mike Newton other than generically popular. And I wrote a note, what clique is this? Because what the fuck clique is Bella a part of? There's a popular guy, but then there's also a nerd? What? That does not resemble my high school experience.
What? Did you have like a movie high school experience where everybody in the clique had the exact same interests?
I don't want to alarm you, Ben, but some cliques were in fact like that.
The most annoying clique at my school was the band kids.
Band.
Yeah. That was the worst.
You talked about your disdain of them before.
Yes. Fuck the band.
They were legion.
I hate the band kids. If you're in high school and you're in the band, quit. I did want to talk about this because I get the vibe that Stephanie Meyer realized this was a problem and that Edward shouldn't be doing this and that it was probably too far. I want to read, so I'll give you this. I'll give you this. Edward's guilty of this.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give you this.
I win.
You don't win the whole thing.
Nope, it's too late. You admitted it.
Edward's guilty of the sneaking into the room and one other thing. I wanted to point out, though, Stephanie Meyer has said that part of the reason she doesn't want to write another one of these is she couldn't really change any of the major story beats because it's just supposed to be the same story, but from Edward's perspective. So I get the vibe, and I could be wrong. I could be being too generous here. I get the vibe Stephanie Meyer would soften some of this if she had it to do again. I think Edward would sneak into her room once. I don't know if he'd do it every night, but he does.
He does.
The other problem I have with Edward the Control Freak, I mean, there's a lot of examples of Edward being the control freak, but another one of the most egregious, and I guess because it is so mundane, like when the supernatural stuff comes into play, I have an easier time giving it a pass because it's like, how should he react if a hostile vampire is stalking her? That's not a situation a 17-year-old's ever going to have to deal with. But
the answer is, oh, you're so hot. Oh, you're so dreamy. I'm sorry that I'm such a helpless lamb before your slaughter. Please forgive me for putting you through all this trauma of wanting to murder everyone in class and then drink my blood. I'm sorry. I didn't. It's my fault for smelling so good.
I'm going to need to read another quote now.
Oh, God.
Just because, okay, this quote has 506 highlights. So people obviously think it's romantic. And so the lion fell in love with the lamb, I whispered. Her eyes were so open and accessible for 1 second. Then she flushed and looked down. She steadied her breath for a moment, and her impish smile returned.
Oh.
What a stupid lamb, she teased, stretching out the joke. What a sick, masochistic lion, I countered.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she literally is like, I'm a lamb for your slaughter. Where were we? I think we were talking about Edward the Control Freak.
No, that's right, we were.
I don't think I got to the point where I was saying, like, the mundane nature of Edward not letting her drive her own car is something that really actually bothers me.
Yeah, and why doesn't he?
Well, he doesn't let her drive her own car specifically because she doesn't have as good a reflexes as a vampire. Like, I should take that back. The first time he doesn't let her drive her own car is after the famous meadow scene.
Where she's too weak from seeing his hot form and also running. He runs
weak
with her.
She's weak, but he also wants to be able to, like, hold her hand while they drive, and she doesn't have the reflexes to do that.
Okay, that gets me into something. Let's talk about my wife.
Okay.
So Bella is a character who they're like, oh, she trips over her own feet and, like, cracks in the ground and ha 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 ha. Dyspraxia is not a joke, sir or madam. Dyspraxia is a real issue. And my wife suffers from dyspraxia. Yes, you did. You said it sounds like a neurological condition. You are correct.
The way they describe Bella's clumsiness is like, it sounds like there's actually something wrong with her.
Yes. It's called dyspraxia. It's a neuromotor issue. It's something that my wife has. So my wife is a little more prone to clumsiness, I guess is the layman's way of saying it, but it's an actual neuro condition.
As a result, you never let her drive?
No, absolutely not. She could drive. I'm not a fucking weirdo.
Well, the second thing that bothers me about it, so okay, he wants to hold her hand, so he wants to drive. He can drive safely with not
Yeah,
paying
because
as
he
much
knows
attention to
these
the road.
roads. He knows these roads like the back of his hand, and as you know, driving conditions are always the same.
Well, okay. I'm willing to forgive that once, okay? Because she also doesn't seem to really want to drive that time. But there
Right.
are many other times where she explicitly asks to drive and would like to drive. And he talks her out of it. And she gives up. And so I guess you could say she didn't really want to drive, but it certainly seems like she expressed an interest in doing something. He said no. She insisted. He said please. And she was like, okay. But
Where does this
it's
sound
like,
familiar from? What other activities could a guy just say please and insist upon?
well, I don't.
Ah.
I really don't think Stephanie Meyer was trying to make an allegory for that.
Oh, I've got an allegory for that in a bit. It's pretty bad. Anyway, come on, keep going with your problems with this. Tie that noose around the book.
It bothers me because there is very much what Bella wants. Okay, I remember. This is now why I say you can't decide if he's Peter Pan or an immortal god. And it's because when he thinks of why it's okay for him to be with Bella, it's because she's going to get bored of him because he's stuck at 17. But when Bella wants something that he doesn't want for her, then she's too immature to make that decision. When Bella wants to become a vampire, Edward says, no, you're only 17. You can't make that choice. And then she asks him, do you regret becoming a vampire? And he says no. But
I was dying.
he knows somewhat, like, the problem isn't necessarily that Edward's trying to be abusive and controlling. I think Edward
I'm gonna
genuinely
guess that had Bella been around during the time that Edward was really 17 as a human, her injuries would have been fatal. I'm just throwing that out there. Modern medicine is what saved her.
Yeah. So I tend to think the problem is not that Edward doesn't love that Edward doesn't truly love Bella. He does truly love Bella, but he doesn't respect her autonomy. And they're not mutually exclusive. And that brings me to, I guess, my next point about one of the problems with Twilight, and that is love.
Go on.
This is simultaneously one of my problems and my defense. Hear me out. So the love that's described in Twilight is not real love. It's not real life. The love itself is objectified and fictional. You have to imagine for Twilight to make sense that love is not like a mutual respect and attraction that grows and wanes over time and takes effort to maintain. No, in Twilight, love is a fundamental force of the universe. It is magnetism. It is the nuclear force. It is inescapable and impartial. When love happens, and it is forever, and that's it. It's just Edward and Bella are in love because they're in love. Love happened to them. That's how love works in Twilight.
I was just walking along, minding my own business, and I tripped and I fell into some love, and that's why I'm married now.
But that fantasy version of love appeals to romance fans. It appeals to me to an extent, and this kind of goes back to you gotta watch. You gotta read this with your brain turned on. Like, it's fine to enjoy this kind of depiction of love as entertainment. Like, wouldn't it be neat if it worked this way? It doesn't. That's kind of the action movie fantasy as well. Wouldn't it be great if I was the hero of my own story and I could punch all my problems, but I can't?
Yeah, it would be.
So that's why I say this is both my criticism and my defense of the book, in that I think this can be harmless entertainment. I don't think it's a good way to live your life, and we should take a moment to think about it and point out that
All right.
this isn't how love works. It's not real.
So now, Ben, I'm going to have to piggyback on what you just said. You said harmless entertainment. The second word in that is entertainment. Did this book need
I knew that's what you were going to do.
650 pages long? And were they all entertaining as all hell?
No. So
Guilty.
I will go back to my initial. Let me look at my my summary. Okay.
How you got in a feedback loop?
Yeah, so the feedback loop is really where the problem is. So Edward doesn't want to be attracted to Bella. He tries to run away. Comes back, decides to face his fears, and he winds up saving her from the famous car scene, where he blocks a car with his hand. Then he tries to gaslight her that he didn't use superpowers to save her, and she doesn't believe that, so he starts ignoring her again.
That'll shut her up.
Then he saves her life again.
What did he do this time?
That was, I forget the name of the town. Port something?
Oh, yeah. Where
he saves her from the
she
rapist.
managed to find the only murder rapist in like the entire it's like a 250-mile radius or something.
Yes.
Like a repeat offender who had committed several crimes across state lines.
Bella runs into a serial rapist. I totally forget what the hell that was about in the first book. I can't remember if she went looking for trouble. In the first book, she separates from her friends on purpose.
Right.
But I forget what the purpose was. I almost kind of remember, I could be conflating New Moon a little bit. I almost feel like she was trying to get in trouble a little bit to see if Edward would save her.
What a terrible, stupid fucking idea. Why would she do that?
I cannot remember what she was trying to do, but I kind of think that was it. I don't remember. But yes, she runs into a serial rapist murderer, and Edward can read his mind, and he dramatically saves Bella again.
And he's conflicted because his only options were either murdering this man or letting him walk free. And it takes him a while to figure out that there are other options.
So I liked this. I like almost everything about this scene because, like I said, I'm still kind of on the idea that I like a monster slowly trying to become human. And I like that Edward is monstrous. I like that he wants to do violence to the thing that made him mad. And I like that it takes him effort to restrain that impulse. And I like that Bella helps him restrain that impulse.
I'm waiting for the but.
The but is that
it was too fucking long and they left in a bunch of other filler nonsense around it to pad the book.
The but is the car scene where he saved her from the car. If you skipped that and just went straight to this, I think it was Port Angeles.
Yes, that's what it was.
If you skipped that and you went straight to the Port Angeles scene, it's so much better. The Port Angeles scene is the one you need. The part where he gaslights her in the hospital, I don't like that. that made me. First off, he's
make
really
that a quote.
I will stand by that. I did not like the gaslighting. That made me feel icky. But no, it wastes time. It introduces a lot of ethical quandaries, and it's dumb. It's just dumb. But again, I kind of get the sense that Stephanie knew this on the second time through. I kind of think maybe she didn't want to have. I don't know if she probably did want to have the car scene. She obviously likes that scene, but I don't know. I mean, the car scene sparks the feud with his family. I guess that's why you need it, because Edward's family gets mad.
You can have that feud just the same by him showing up out of nowhere.
Yeah, if instead of like just showing up in the car, he
charged in.
He charged in
superhuman speed.
Yeah, and he grabs her and gets out. Yeah, you could do that. And then he has to explain it to her, and then the family gets pissed. Yeah, I think ditch the car scene, keep this scene. You saved yourself 150 pages right there of everything that happened between the car scene and now. The other thing I think you could save some time on is
removing the amount of times that he stalked into her bedroom.
Well, yeah.
Listen to her talk in her sleep and watch her sleep. And he goes in, he grabs a blanket. This is all explained in just excruciating, painful detail.
This is something that's a problem in the original books that I don't think she's learned. Her style is to write minute by minute what is happening. Like, she does not...
Except for without the pooping, like you said.
Yeah, nobody ever goes to the bathroom, but that's about the only thing she skips. She writes, like, literally what happened. Like, there is a part where they agree on Wednesday to hang out on Saturday. And she describes every day and night between Wednesday and Saturday.
That was the worst part of the book. They're building up to the meadow scene where he comes out as fabulous in the sunlight. And, oh God, it's just excruciating because nothing happens. It's like every day he thinks, man, she's going to think I'm a monster when she sees that I glow in the sun. She'll never love me. Boo-hoo. Every day.
There's one thing buried in Edward's recurring thoughts that I do like that does make the first book make more sense. He constantly thinks that she's going to think he's a monster, which is in the first book. He constantly thinks that this is a bad idea and that he doesn't know if he can control himself, even after he's already committed to trying it. I think once he commits to trying it, he needs to just focus on ways to make it work. But one of the things I like, the conversation he has with Rosalie, that is not in the first book. And that is definitely something that was missing. When he tells Rosalie, she asks him what his plan is. Because how are they ever going to make this work? He's got to turn her into a vampire. And Edward's like, no, I don't have to turn her into a vampire. And Rosalie's like, well, how the fuck do you think she's just going to leave? Edward legitimately thinks, and I think he has good reason to think this, because it goes along with Stephanie Meyer's intention that he will stay 17 for eternity. Eventually, Bella will mature emotionally to the point where his little mood swings and passions and all that.
So you're making an argument for her to not be transformed into a vampire.
Well, I'm saying it makes sense that Edward thinks it's an option. That Edward thinks she'll leave me eventually. And when she tells me that's what she wants, I will be able to leave. I will be able to do that for her.
No, you won't.
And yeah, we the reader don't want that. I mean, ideally, you want them to... I know you don't give a shit, but I don't want that. I want them to be together. So,
if anything, I kind of think he's right. I think that she should grow and mature and get the fuck out of this and not be stuck as a 16-year-old or 17 or 18 or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, if you're looking at it hyper-practically, John McClane also shouldn't shoot all those people.
That's not true. Those were terrorists.
And he was the law.
Hey, someone had to save all those hostages, and if it happened to be with awesome gun violence, let's do it.
Maybe Edward just needs to buy Bella a gun.
I'd watch that movie.
No, I like if you go along for the ride, you want Edward and Bella to make it work. And yeah, I do agree, like locking him in at 17, it wasn't the best choice. It is a young adult thing. Her audience is 17.
That's the peak of living right there. 17.
When you're 17, you tend to think you already know everything you need to know. So I don't hate it. I can excuse it. It is a problem, but I can excuse it. If you assume that you're on board for Bella and Edward's romance, just for the sake of romance, I get now how Edward thinks that this is going to work.
No, Ben,
Edward just wants to enjoy his time.
She needs to go away, and she needs to teach junior college English and live the dream.
That was a very practical choice on Bella's
She
part.
had some very low ambitions.
Bro, I wish I was teaching computer science at a community college. Are you kidding?
Why don't you?
That'd be a fucking sweet gig, because I don't have a master's degree and they're expensive.
Oh, you need a master's degree to teach?
I need a master's degree or a teaching degree.
Really?
I think so, yeah. Well, most places would require that.
Huh.
I know nothing about teaching. Let me teach you.
I mean...
Yeah, if you cut down on Edward's repetition of his points, I liked the conversation with Rosalie. If more of Edward's ruminations could have been done through interesting and illuminating conversations, I'd have been down for that.
All right, can you defend Rosalie? She's fucking
no.
awful. She's nothing but rude and mean and spiteful. She threatens to light his car on fire, and she yells at him and calls him selfish, even though she's the most selfish of them all.
What do you know about
her only
Rosalie?
thing is super beauty powers.
You mentioned in one of your notes or one of our conversations that this book assumes you know some things about Rosalie.
I assume that she redeems herself at some point in the later books because there's nothing redeemable about her in this book, and she turns her back on her family in need.
Okay, there's two things about Rosalie. The first,
she's really hot,
is the circumstances of how she became a vampire, which
right.
I think
she didn't choose this life.
Well, they do talk about that in this book.
She hunts down some people who assaulted her.
Yeah, okay. So Rosalie was engaged, and the guy who she was engaged to decided to get him and his buds together and basically gang rape her to death.
What? Why? What?
Yeah.
That's a little dark. Not even a little. That's really fucking dark. And B...
So Carlisle, finds her dying in an alley or maybe in a hospital, but it was olden times.
So why did love as electromagnetism not work? Was it because it was the wrong...
He didn't have it.
Okay.
It wasn't there for them. Well, also that guy was kind of a sociopath.
Oh, yeah.
So what Rosalie does, she turns into a vampire, and then she kills every single one of the people that did that to her.
But Carlisle saves her because he's like, this will be a great bride for my son.
Well, he saves her because he thinks maybe there could be something between her and Edward, she could be Edward's companion. But he also saves her because she's dying.
There are a lot of people, I'm sure, who die under his care.
She was dying in an expressly, unfair way. I think
Again, there's a lot of people who get totally fucked by life, and it's not fair, and I don't like it.
Well, they don't all run into Carlisle Cullen.
Okay, all right. Well, there you go. I guess that's my fault. Maybe he should try harder.
Yeah. If Carlisle happens to be your doctor, you got a shot.
Only if he happens to have a son or a daughter who needs someone.
So that's the first part of Rosalie's story, is that she has a very sympathetic origin. And then the second part is, because of that, she didn't want to be a vampire. She wanted to be a wife and mother, and a mother especially.
Here are her options at this point, okay? Vampire or dead?
Right.
She can still make that choice.
I think
if she doesn't want to be a vampire, she can have someone tear her head off and light her on fire or whatever it is that kills vampires, and she can make that decision. That's
surprisingly hard to do, as we will find out in New Moon, when Edward tries to kill himself.
First of all, I've seen the movie clip of people just getting heads ripped off left and right.
No, I mean, it's hard to find somebody willing to do it. But, so she wanted to be, I think, especially a mother. And
you can adopt.
I
know it's not the same as carrying a parasite around inside you that makes it so you can't go to sleep until 4 a.m. I'm so sorry.
You're having
to my
a
wife.
child. God.
I know. That child's coming out and it's grounded for all the shit that it's putting my wife through.
Oh God. So, okay, she eventually Bella eventually figures out. I forget if they have a conversation or what, but Bella figures out that Rosalie doesn't agree with her choice to become a vampire because Bella's throwing away the chance Rosalie had. And the thing that redeems Rosalie is when Bella finds out she's having a child that is possibly going to kill her, and that Edward wants to abort it, and Edward, this is problematic. Bella's afraid that Edward might do this against her will.
Yes. Why would she be afraid of that, I wonder?
Bella's afraid that if she's unconscious and it comes to her or the baby, Edward will choose her against her wishes, which is a problem. But Bella contacts Rosalie before they land their plane, and Rosalie's waiting there for her, and Rosalie protects Bella the rest of the pregnancy because Rosalie will choose the baby every time over Bella, which doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't.
But that kind of makes amends between them. Rosalie wins Aunt of the Year. Do you like Rosalie now?
No.
But you do like Emmett.
Yeah, except for when he fights bears. I kind of feel sorry for the bear because he's just like, he's toying with it as he's murdering it.
I didn't expect to like Emmett as much as I did. I didn't give a shit about Emmett in all of the books.
He was great otherwise, though. He was straightforward. He was a cool guy. You know, the only thing I don't like about Emmett, his choice in mate.
But I was going to say, normally as a bear myself, I sympathize with the woodland creature. But in this case, the fact that Emmett was, like, how he became a vampire was he was mauled to death by a bear.
And Rosalie was like, oh my God, this man is so hot.
She got hit with the love.
She fell into some love.
And then she had to save him. And I kind of enjoy that he's being such a petty bitch about losing a fist fight to a bear. That to this day, he still punches bears.
I'm okay with him punching the bear. I just didn't like that he was just like, he's toying with it before he's gonna murder it and eat it. I was like, I kind of feel sorry for the bear. Just the way she wrote it, I think.
It was very anti-bear.
Yes.
She could be more sensitive to that. I think, yes. So, Stephanie Meyer, if we have one change, if we can only have one.
If we have one change, get fucked.
Could Emmett be nicer to the bear? She'd probably give it to us. With that, dear listeners, I think we are going to have to wrap up. Please tune back in next week for the exciting conclusion to our series on Midnight Sun. As always, you can find us on Twitter at WABpod. You can find our show notes and commentary over at blog.wordsaboutbooks.ninja. And if you like the podcast and you want to help us grow, please consider sharing the podcast on social media and or giving us a review wherever it is that you found this podcast. Thanks everyone so much for listening, and hopefully we will see you next time. Bye. Next time on Words About Books. Bella's mother comes to visit her in the hospital, and oh my God, in case you were wondering all these years if you were supposed to have liked Renee. The answer is no. No, Renee is a horrible garbage person who, and I'm sorry, but you know what it's like, belongs in Florida.
A lot of vagina. There's the James Bond reference. Or no, that's Austin Powers.